Howdy. At 4,256 episodes over 50 years and counting, Sesame Street remains the longest ongoing kids show in the world. And during that insane amount of time, they've covered some pretty solemn, serious subjects.
It's all right, Big Bird. I'm here with you.
Hey Strider, got room for one more?
Hey, if it isn't the master of kids shows himself. Welcome back, George. Yeah, you bet. Have you run into some particularly somber or dark Sesame Street episodes yourself?
Yes, I have. Although they handle the subjects respectfully, Sesame Street has certainly handled their fair share of more serious subjects like prison, mourning, racism, bullying, and divorce.
Well, shall we chat about some of these episodes together then?
You bet. Let's go.
Alright, let's check out the top 6 darkest Sesame Street episodes. Number 6. Sesame Street visits the hospital.
Hey Strider, did you know that in one episode, Big Bird got a serious lung infection and had to go to the hospital?
Are we in the hospital yet?
Yeah.
Well, I still don't feel any better.
Oh yeah, I remember that. According to Big Bird's doctor, his disease was called pneumotreatitis canaria, something that could get much worse if left untreated. But thanks to Maria, Big Bird is immediately taken to the hospital to get the care he needs.
Well, it's not actually a real disease, but I think it gets the point across about serious illnesses and how rapidly they can affect people.
Well, real or not, it must be a pretty serious lung infection in the show, as Big Bird is coughing, wheezing, and struggling to breathe throughout most of the episode. Even his eyes are in this constant state of gloom and pain.
Maria, why do I have to go see a doctor?
To find out what sickness you have.
What's cool about this episode is that despite Big Bird being a giant yellow muppet, I really feel like I can see the pain and fear in his eyes. But most importantly, it normalizes something that can be a pretty scary thing for children or adults. Seeing a loved one or themselves in hospital, waking up in a dark room alone in an unknown place. It's all unknown experiences for some people.
Oh, I can't sleep. It's night and everybody's gone home.
And when we see Big Bird there, going through it all, it makes it seem just a little less scary.
Okay, ready?
Go ahead. Ow! Ow! Ow!
I used to feel very uneasy when they gave Big Bird a shot in this episode, as I had a small phobia of needles when I was younger. A lot less now though, as I've found giving blood actually helps this phobia a lot.
Props to you, Strider. Each blood donation can potentially save 3 lives. But in regards to the episode, Big Bird actually ends up having to stay a few days in the hospital. They monitor his condition carefully, and he even ends up getting a few x-rays.
He really wants to go home, but is aggravated that he can't because he's too sick. He even starts to wonder if he did something wrong to get sick and starts to blame himself.
Fortunately, Maria is there to reassure Big Bird and help make the visit easier.
But you know, Big Bird, it takes time to get well. You just have to wait while they help you.
There was surprisingly heavy tone here, but it was a very important episode, because I think a lot of people, young and old, can sometimes associate the hospital with a sense of loss and fear. And Sesame Street helping to normalize these potentially scary or frustrating situations is always wonderful to see.
How was it being in the hospital?
Well, it wasn't all fun, but it wasn't all bad either.
And for number 5, The Good Birds Club. This doesn't sound like a dark episode. With a title like The Good Birds Club, what could be dark about it?
Well, you might be surprised, Strider. Beneath the surface, this episode is actually about bullying and peer pressure, showing some of the harmful yet subtle effects they can have on kids.
Is that so? Oh look, it's also got Gordon, aka Roscoe Orman. Roscoe's been playing Gordon for nearly 50 years. I really respect this guy.
Yeah, me too. It's hard not to respect his dedication to the show after all these years. So Big Bird receives an invitation to the Good Birds Club. Big Bird is excited.
The Good Birds Club? That sounds like a great club! Wow, when is it? When can I join?
But it's when he arrives at the club, things start to take a darker turn.
The birds start tormenting Big Bird, mocking his feet, his body, his feathers, his entire appearance actually. They even claim he's too big.
Look at you, your big eyes and your large wings, your gigantic beak.
Wow.
You are way too big.
Haven't they ever seen an ostrich or an emu before? Those birds are huge. I got chased by an emu last week.
Really? I'm not sure if that's traumatic or hilarious.
Well, it was traumatic at the time. Look at those scary pointy beaks.
Well, anyway, Big Bird doesn't understand or notice that he's being bullied, and he begins changing himself to fit the group, no longer liking himself as he is.
Eventually, Big Bird changes so much that he barely resembles Big Bird anymore. He changes his feet, his size, and even the color of his feathers just so he can fit in. It's actually pretty confronting to see just how much the birds subtly pick away at his self-image and his self-esteem. Even with Elmo and Abby telling him he should like himself and forget the club, Big Bird is determined to fit in with a crowd, which is actually a pretty common lesson people go through in high school.
Even outside of high school, some people may not even realize when they are being bullied, and may start to believe that there is actually something wrong with them.
Fortunately, in the end, Big Bird's real friends intervene and tell him he doesn't need to be in the club to be considered a good bird. He was already a good bird.
Who cares what they think? They're just bullying you. They're treating you as if you're not good enough. The question is, what do you think?
Which is a nice ending to a sadly realistic situation. If you're curious, I left links to most of these episodes in the description. And the fourth, darkest Sesame Street episode is the Fire episode. Since George and I have previously talked about the 9/11 episode before, I thought we should start by discussing the first Fire episode in Sesame Street.
Isn't that the one where the fire department arrives to put out Oscar's fire? I think a monster also gets trapped in a burning building.
Yeah, that's it. At first it looks like Oscar might be trapped in the trash can with the fire.
Someone in there?
Oscar the Grouch, and 2 elephants, and a puppy, and a rhino, and a goat, and a worm.
But the fire department soon discovers that Oscar was apparently just having a barbecue.
Similar to when Mr. Hooper's store was on fire, Elmo visits the firehouse, but with Big Bird and Gordon.
This time we even get a catchy song from the firefighters of how they spend their free time when waiting for the next fire to break out.
Ping, we pong, we pong, we ping, waiting for the bell to ring.
Elmo and Big Bird even end up attending the next emergency response when another fire starts. It turns out someone is still trapped upstairs as an electrical fire burns.
He's got him!
The monster is saved, but the house does end up wrecked.
Oh, but what about our house?
From their visit, Elmo and Big Bird learn what they should do if their homes ever went up in flames.
Always go to the firefighter.
Just like Mr. Monster.
Oscar even starts practicing fire drills for the safety of Sesame Street.
We're practicing what you do if there's a fire.
And as we previously mentioned, the later fire at Mr. Hooper's store was actually covered by one of the fire departments that attended the 9/11 disaster. It was a very important episode for them to help with, as their fire department actually lost firefighters during the 9/11 disaster. The episode teaches some very important messages, helping kids to be better prepared for an emergency.
You look like you're ready to go to a fire, doesn't it, Chief?
And the third, darkest Sesame Street episode is Homelessness and Food Shortage. Hey George, did you know there's actually a homeless Muppet on Sesame Street? Due to a recent rise in homelessness among families, a Muppet named Lily was recently introduced to the cast. In this episode, she admits to Elmo that she gets most of her food from her school.
I get breakfast and lunch for free in my school. That's 2 whole meals a day.
Oh yeah, I remember Lily. Unfortunately, food insecurity remains a challenge for many people. About 40 million Americans are unable to get enough food for basic survival, and about 12 million of these Americans are children.
It's a surprisingly high figure when you think about how much food our Western countries throw away. In this episode, Lily and other children talk about their experiences with being unable to get enough food, but also how food drives in the shelters have helped them. A lot of these families find their job simply doesn't provide enough income, or they had a family member recently lose their job.
The episode does shed some light on the situation though, as it teaches kids and adults ways they can help.
In fact, Rosita starts her own food drive and collects food from her neighbors.
I have some great food here for the food drive. Wow!
It was a fine way to introduce a very serious topic to kids in an understandable way, and even better, show them ways they can help. And the second darkest Sesame Street episode is Incarceration. Sesame Street has talked about a wide variety of subjects in the past, but I don't think many people were expecting them to talk about incarceration. Here we're introduced to a new Muppet named Alex, and he admits to Abby and Rosita that his dad is in jail. Sophia's dad has been in jail too though, so she's able to at least empathize with what Alex is going through.
Sophia explains what incarceration is, and we hear the experiences of kids who've had their parents go to jail, sometimes for years.
What's hard about it? Like, what's the hardest part of it? You know, when I'm traveling and then I see children with their mothers and playing and everything. And I just wonder how it feels to be like that.
I think it's important that Alex and Sophia do show kids with incarcerated parents that they're not alone, since some children may feel upset, ashamed, or not understand why their parents are in jail. So I'm glad they talk about it. And the episode explains things like it's not the children's fault. There isn't any other kid show I can think of that actually addresses loved ones in prison. It even shows parents ways they might be able to help their children going through these tough times.
As to be expected, Sesame Street handles the subject of imprisonment with dignity, empathy, and respect.
It makes me feel better to know that I'm not alone.
And before we get to number 1, let's go through some quick honorable mentions. The Sesame Street Racism episode.
What has color got to do with being friends?
Nothing. Nothing at all, that's the point.
Jean is about to start her shift at Hooper's store, but suddenly receives a disturbing call.
How dare you say so? Who is this? No, who is this anyway? What makes you think you can just call up here and say something like that?
Her friend Savion tells the caller off and hangs up, but both are left frustrated, and Savion puts it quite succinctly to Telly.
Telly, there's just some really stupid people in the world who can't stand to see it when people of different races are friends.
The message is kept straightforward and to the point, and it's easy to understand, and sadly, was apparently never taught to a lot of people across the world.
I'm brown and you're purple.
Yeah, but I am best friends with you. And I'm best friends with Oscar, and he's green and I'm purple.
Yeah.
So there!
Yeah.
Clinton and Kami talk about HIV and AIDS. In 2002, Sesame Street introduced Cami. She's a kind, caring Muppet, but also HIV positive. She got a permanent spot on Talcony Sesame, which is the South African version of Sesame Street. I really like Kami. She even does talks with both Bill Clinton and even United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, ranging from discussing HIV awareness to good health across the planet. Kami's advice covers everything from how HIV is transmitted, or more importantly, how it isn't transmitted.
We are having a street party here on Takalani Sesame in support of everyone who is HIV positive like me.
In fact, Kami has been somewhat of an international spokeswoman for the cause, appearing alongside Oprah Winfrey, Desmond Tutu, Laura Bush, Whoopi Goldberg, as well as Bill Clinton, in order to raise awareness for the disease. Divorce. This was originally covered in a removed episode, so later, Sesame Street made this segment on divorce instead. It turns out Abby's parents don't live together anymore, and she explains this to Elmo and Rosita, but one thing they made sure to clarify is it wasn't the child's fault.
A divorce happens because of problems between grown-ups. It is never a child's fault.
Telly and the Mysterious X. This is actually considered to be the creepiest Sesame Street episode by many. Not specifically dealing with a dark, serious subject, but just considered creepy childhood memories for many.
Got to believe it's there. Couldn't have gone far.
The way the music goes spooky, the world darkens and smoke billows out as this strange X stalks towards the unknowing Telly. My conscious memories don't remember this thing, but my amygdala certainly does.
Quick! It's the letter X! Big Bird! Come on! Where? It's the letter X!
Disasters. Sesame Street goes through a storm.
Big Bird. It's all right. It's all right.
No, it's not.
You're right, Big Bird. It's not all right, but it will be all right.
A massive hurricane hits Sesame Street. Gordon and Big Bird look out in shock over the wreckage left of their town.
In fact, Big Bird's nest is completely destroyed. With his home wrecked, he feels devastated.
The episode talks a lot about preparing for disasters and the process of losing things important to us, and sometimes rebuilding what you can of what has been lost. Now, this last one I'm hesitant to call an honorable mention at all because I don't consider it a disease, but I'd like to at least mention it. Introducing Julia, the Sesame Street character with autism. Now, just to clarify, I don't view autism as a mental illness, but rather simply a different neurological wiring. People did recommend this one, so I wanted to explain why it wasn't on the list. Yes, it presents daily challenges, but it doesn't mean you're not capable. She also communicates that although autism is less common in women, it most certainly exists in both genders. Anyway, on to number 1.
Sometimes you have to do things that aren't easy.
When Families Grieve. Perhaps one of the most difficult to discuss topics Sesame Street has ever covered is the loss of a loved one, and the process of dealing with that intense grief and that mixture of feelings.
I think we've both talked about the original episode on Grieve, actually. It was called Goodbye, Mr. Hooper. It carefully discusses the death and loss of Mr. Hooper, one of the founding Sesame Street characters.
Yeah, as I mentioned in Darkest PBS, the Sesame Street team actually dealt with this grief while teaching about this loss to the audience. It's one of the most powerful moments in the entire show. But in When Families Grieve, we get more discussion on the emotional process of losing a loved one and how it can affect us, and especially how it can affect children.
The episode starts with Elmo's dad, Louie, and Elmo getting ready for a picnic with cousin Jessie and Aunt Jill. However, Elmo doesn't fully understand that his uncle has passed away, so his dad tries to talk to him about it before they go.
When someone dies, it means they're not alive anymore. Their body has stopped working. They don't eat or breathe or talk on the phone.
But Elmo still doesn't seem to understand the concept of death, as he still continues to look for his uncle, resulting in a very silencing moment for both families.
But where's Uncle Jack?
Sweetheart, Uncle Jack died, remember?
We find out that Jess has been trying to ignore her memories of her dad and doesn't ever want to talk about her father, not even to her own mother. It really showcases how kids can experience grief and loss in a believable way. In grief, kids may not just feel sad, but anger, hurt, frustration, or confusion.
Sometimes I even feel angry that he died. You ever feel that way?
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like it just isn't fair.
And this episode encourages people to discuss these feelings with loved ones, even though it may be tempting to ignore these thoughts because they hurt.
The episode highlights how important it is for people to talk about these thoughts and feelings they may be trying to ignore. It was even nominated for an Outstanding Children's Nonfiction Program Emmy in 2010.
And what I appreciate is Sesame Street doesn't claim to give any right answers here. It simply says, I'm sorry, and I'm here for you when you feel ready to talk. The episode offers children and parents help on grieving those who have passed, but also showing how important our memories of them are. Sesame Street has a boldness of steel, and even though death may have been seen as too dark a subject for many shows, they knew how important this was, and they discussed it with honesty, openness, and respect. It's a dark but very important, well done Sesame Street episode. In my opinion, we don't often get adult issues from a child's perspective that don't feel pandering, insincere, or stupid. But it always feels like I'm seeing life's challenges from both a real child and a real parent's perspective when I watch this show. For some people, Sesame Street can be a safe haven that can always be looked back on. And for others, it can be a show for guidance in tough, difficult situations and experiences. They even intend to tackle subjects in the future like opioid addiction in parents, which is another growing, more recent concern.
But children need to know they're not alone. They need us grown-ups, family, and friends to help them through.
And I can comfortably say something for Sesame Street that I don't think I can say for any other show on the planet. I'm happy to see Sesame Street keep going until the sun explodes. Possibly longer, maybe until the final white dwarf explodes. You get the idea.
Well, that's over 1 trillion years away, so we probably don't need to worry about that yet.
Yeah, I guess you're right. By the way, thanks for visiting the show again, George. It's always a treat to have your help.
Hey, anytime, Strider. If you ever need a hand again, I'll be on my channel BlameitonJorge. Until we meet again.
Until we meet again, my friend. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. I got chased by an emu last week.
Really? I'm not sure if that's traumatic or hilarious.
Well, it was traumatic at the time. Look at those scary pointy beaks.